Hi there, I'm Jeremy and I'm VHT, and welcome to another Skylog tutorial. Today I'll get into some of the computer-aided dispatching features and how they can help you keep track of what's going on during an event. As usual, if you see any blurry text when I get into Skylog, you may need to force YouTube to play this back in HD. When event day arrives, Skylog has all of the ham operators marked as checked out, as demonstrated in the previous video. The next statuses that I'll typically transition them to are either checked in or in service. I use checked in to represent the fact that I've at least heard from them. A few of the events that I volunteer for have an early morning communications team meeting. At that point, I'll start checking people off on paper if that's all I have handy, and then I'll mark them as checked in when I get logged into Skylog. Even if they just call to tell me that they're running late, I still mark them as checked in because I know they at least got out of bed this morning. When they're actually set up and ready to perform their event functions, I mark them as in service. This helps me to answer the questions from the event coordinators on who is up and running and where we may need to quickly backfill. So for demonstration purposes, I'll pretend that we're in the middle of the event and I'm just going to go through and mark everyone as checked in. Yeah, let's put a few of these in service too, why not? You can see here for the ones that I'm jumping straight from checked out status to in service, Skylog's reminding me that they weren't checked in before that. Just in case I mistakenly marked the wrong station in service, it's just giving me a heads up here. Note that it says it still changed their status to in service. And you can also see that reflected on the right hand side of the screen. So I have all of my stations now marked as checked in and or in service. Now eventually what will happen next is I'll start receiving incidents that I need to keep track of. So let's say rest stop 2 calls in and they have a tired rider who needs a ride back to the finish line. I want to flag this incident as being kept open because it does need attention. And the next thing I need is a SAG to handle this request. Now here is the single most long-awaited and often requested feature in all of Skylog. Stations can now be assigned to incidents while the incident is first being created. It used to be that you had to click OK, let Skylog save the incident, and then you had to reopen it to assign a station. No more. If you know right now who you want to assign to it, you can just do it. In this case, I know that SAG2 will be the one to handle this request, so I'll just go ahead and make that assignment. I dispatch SAG2 over the radio, they say they're on their way, and I mark them en route. And yes, by the way, longtime Skylog users, I did fix this. En route is now ER. The system will still accept :IR for those of you in the habit of typing that colon command, but let's just get in the habit of doing the right thing as much as you can. Alright, so I'm done with this incident for the time being, so I can either hit enter or click the done button and get out of it. It's important to always close out of the edit incident screen when you don't actually need to edit anything. When one user has an incident open for editing, no one else can touch it. The same goes for any stations that are assigned to the incident. Nobody else can do anything with any of them if somebody is editing the incident that they're assigned to. This is necessary to prevent users from stomping on each other. So let's say SAG2 calls back and says that they're now on location. I can change SAG2 status by either opening the incident and clicking on the OL status, at which point the system just assumes, okay, they're on location, they must be where the incident was reported from. The other way you could do this is to use the :OL command. And if you really want to, by using the :OL command, you can override the station's new location by tacking on another slash followed by the location. But this is pretty rare. Usually you're going to just say the station's on location where the incident was reported from. When the SAG picks up the tired rider, I can then switch their status to transporting. Again, there are 2 ways to do that. I could edit the incident and click on the TR status, or I can use the :TR command. Now, if I click on the TR status in the incident, all that happens is that the status of the station changes. There isn't any way from there to say where the SAG is transporting to. If I use the :TR command, I can tack on another argument that says they're transporting to the finish line, for example. And now, if I look at the status of SAG2 on station summary, I can see here their last known location was, the location of the rest stop, and then en route to, well, I typed to the finish line, which is a little silly, but they're en route to the finish line with their rider that they're transporting. Now, most of the time, folks will leave the incident open with the SAG assigned to it while the SAG is transporting. But if there's another pickup on the way back that you want to put the SAG on, you certainly can close the incident, assign SAG to the other one, put them on location, then put them in transporting, so on and so forth. It's really up to you how you want to keep track of that status. When the incident is done and it's time to put all the units back in service, there are actually 4 ways to do it. As you might have guessed, I can edit the incident, and I can click on the IS status to put the station back in service. It'll be automatically unassigned from the incident because that's kind of what in service means. I can also do a :IS command on the station. I can also edit the incident and click on the closed button. That will close the incident and unassign stations and put them back in service. Or there is the :CL command, which takes an incident number, and I could use that to close the incident as well. Of course, in this case, it's telling me that incident 1 was already closed. That kind of makes sense. Okay, so here's another change. Unlike previous versions of Skylog, it is now possible to assign stations to incidents that are set to automatically close at a later time. This usually doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world because incidents with expiration times are usually just pieces of information. An incident that actually needs to be handled typically won't have a scheduled close time. So usually, I use incidents with close times for things like tracking weather warnings. Now, if I really want to assign somebody to handle this severe thunderstorm warning, I don't know what they do with it. Maybe they have to go evacuate riders from a sensitive area of the course or something like that. I can actually do so. When the severe thunderstorm warning incident reaches its expiration time, there's a background process that will close the incident and will put any assigned stations back in service, just like if I had closed it. So you just need to be aware that that's going to happen. It's also possible to put stations in most statuses, regardless of whether they're assigned to an incident. A few combinations aren't allowed because they don't make sense. First, we already said that if a station is assigned to an incident and you try to put the station back into in-service status, it'll get unassigned from the incident. The exact same thing happens if you mark a station as checked out. So if I go :CO SAG2, SAG2 gets unassigned from the incident because it really doesn't make sense for them to still be assigned to an incident if they're no longer on your net. Second, Skylog doesn't allow stations to be assigned to incidents that are closed. Closing an incident specifically means that it doesn't need any further action. So if I try to take SAG3 and assign it to incident 2, which is closed, I'll get a complaint. We've already seen that if you close an incident while stations are assigned to it, the stations are unassigned and put back in service, again for the same reason. If you're closing an incident, that specifically means that it doesn't need any more attention. Also, you can't assign a station to an incident if the station isn't checked in yet. This is done primarily to prevent mistakes. So I marked SAG2 as checked out. If I try to assign it to incident 1, which is still open, I'm told at the bottom that SAG2 is checked out. The station must at least be checked in order to be assigned to something. If you get shot down, say while you're in edit incident, trying to do an assignment and you get told it's checked out, just do a quick :CI on it, and then you can go ahead and make the assignment. You're perfectly fine. So let's say we accidentally put SAG2 on location. The :AS command can be used to put the station back into assigned status, like this. I'm sorry, station 1 doesn't exist. See, there you go. The period thing saved me from adding a bogus station to the database. So :AS SAG2, not rest stop 2, back in assigned status. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to put a station into assigned status if it's not assigned to something, right? It results in a complaint. But if we want, we can give it another argument and say assign SAG2 to incident number 1, and that's perfectly fine. close incident 1 again. You can enter colon commands into pretty much any text field. The colon just needs to be the first thing that you enter. So here in edit incident, I can mark a station as checked out, I can mark a station as checked back in, as well as make the assignment. So you saw me do that earlier. Also, kind of a neat thing, if you overwrite the content of a field with a command, it executes the command and puts your original text back in there. Now in this case, I can't do what I tried to do because I tried to execute a colon command on SAG2. Well, guess what? I already have SAG2 locked as part of this incident, and that would be crossing the streams. That would be bad. But if I try to check out SAG3, there you go. Down at the bottom, it tells me SAG3 has been checked out, and I've got my description back in the event. So the whole point of this is that it allows you to quickly handle interruptions and then get back to whatever you had been doing. So there you have it. An introduction to computer-aided dispatching in Skylog. I am open to suggestions and comments on how to make the software better. Some of what you see today is actually the result of comments from users, particularly Luke and Matt. You too can email me or leave comments on the videos. 73, and see you next time.